Hi, so this is the series of videos with Glasswall. So I'm here with Lopez, who is the CEO of Glasswall, and we're going to be talking about a whole number of topics about this amazing technology that we've been developed and on this journey that we've been together for a good number of years. So maybe Danny, just give us a little bit about you and sort of why Glasswall.
Sure. Well, great to join you today. So why Glasswall and what have I done over the last few years? So I did 10 years in banking. I then did 10 years in government, which included a stint working for the Foreign Office for 5 years, being the British Consul General to New York. And for the last 7 years now, I've been in tech. And I was attracted to Glasswall because it was a story of plugging the gap that so many other security vendors were not able to address. You know, this is a fast-growing company, obsessed with security, with some really good people, great technology that had been adopted already by the intelligence community, and an opportunity to actually make a difference in the security space. And it's such a crowded world, but when you see the impact that a small company can have on protecting organizations, it's really powerful.
Yeah. So Glasswall is a CDR engine, right? We sell a CDR product. So what's CDR?
So CDR stands for Content, Disarm and Reconstruction. And actually, it essentially does what I've just said. You know, we take files and attachments. So CDR is all about protecting files and attachments. And actually, this is really important because, you know, as you know very well, 80% of attacks that organizations, public sector and private sector, suffer are typically because of an attachment creeping in through email or a shared platform or whatever it might be. And the user, you know, without thinking they're doing anything wrong, and why would they, are clicking on a link or opening something up that triggers some malware, and of course we know what that can cause. So what we do the opposite of what you think so many security companies do with files and attachments. So antivirus technology is all about analyzing a file from multiple viewpoints to try and figure out exactly whether it recognizes something in that file that is bad. Yeah. And when antivirus technology is at its best, it's essentially in very, very, very small amount of time trying to find what we call digital signatures and trying to match something that they find to a library of bad stuff. We do the complete opposite. We don't care about what's bad, we care about what is good. And by that I mean that we look at that same file and we break it down into its very core DNA, a number of layers within its DNA, and we rebuild it in milliseconds based on what we know is good about that file. And what is good? Well, it's following the published compliance spec that the manufacturer had in the first place. And by doing that, we're able to remediate anything that doesn't conform. Anything that doesn't conform is typically bad stuff. And then also, we are in a position where we can strip out active content, the sorts of things that we don't need anymore that can cause a lot of bad stuff. Macros, JavaScript, anything there that doesn't necessarily isn't needed by the user, we can strip out, again adding an extra layer of security. So ultimately what we're doing is we're delivering a clean, safe file in milliseconds, and that's what the user wants.
And that was actually what attracted me a lot, which is in security, one of the things we know works is rebuilding into known good. If you go into a known good state across all sorts of areas of security, and in this case, for file security, it's a great way to do it. So now we're now pushing this really idea of the ZeroTrust file security.
ZeroTrust. I mean, these are the two words that we hear all the time, and I think rightly so. You know, what is ZeroTrust? Is essentially a strategic approach to security that is based on not trusting and always verifying. So, you know, just because your network might be connected to, you know, a LAN secure network, traditionally we would have thought that, well, that means it's safe, but it's no longer safe because data is moving through so quickly. We have unpatched vulnerabilities, we have all sorts of issues that of course can create risk, and therefore the default has to be that we don't trust anything. And if you have that approach, then you're able to do something about it. And verifying is around making sure that you are able to feel comfortable with and continuously feel comfortable, because, you know, verification on a Monday is probably useless on a Tuesday, but if you do it constantly, then that's what ZeroTrust is about. You know, verifying, and not thinking that just because you are in your own little world, you know, you're secure. Somebody was explaining to me once, this is really based on, you know, medieval sort of military strategies, because castles had their moats, and moats were supposed to keep castles secure, and the strategy was, well, anything outside the castle is potentially a threat and is going to come through the moat, so we'll deal with it, but anything within the castle has got to be secure, because why wouldn't it? And of course we know now that in a digital world that is a big problem, because from within you have a multitude of risks, and that's the approach you need to be able to take to try and do something about it.
Yeah. So in looking at the last couple of years, what are some major milestones that you think we've now hit?
Oh, gosh, so many. So within Glasswall, I mean, I think there's, one of course is within Glasswall, and the second is content disarm and reconstruction is growing a lot. More and more I'm finding that chief information security officers, CISOs, have heard about it, want to know more, want to integrate it within their existing portfolio or suite of solutions, and see it as a very important part to combat zero-trust vulnerability. So that's kind of the first one. But then us as a company, I mean, we've progressed so much. I mean, I smile because I look back to only 3 years ago, and you could only really 3 years ago use Glasswall in two different ways. You could integrate our technology via an SDK into, something that a larger, probably more sophisticated player was selling into an organization. So, putting a CDR Glasswall filter in there. So essentially a raw integration of our technology. And then of course by email, which is the way in which we consume so many files and attachments, we had an on-premise integration. That was Glasswall up until 2.5 years ago. I now fast forward, and we are a cloud native company that has invested significantly in making sure that we have an API-first approach to security. And yes, we still have an on-premise email solution, and yes, we still have an SDK integration, but actually, ultimately, we are an API-based company. And that is a huge, huge, huge advancement of our technology. I think the second one that I'm particularly proud of is our scalability. Because it's all very well having this tremendous and very powerful content disarm and reconstruction engine, but if you're only throwing a few files in at one time, then frankly, an organization in today's world where we're receiving thousands and thousands, it's not really going to cut it, is it? So we've invested very heavily in that, and we're now in a position where we can literally process a terabyte an hour or more. I mean, this translates into potentially millions of files an hour. And as you know well, Dinis, I was in the US only recently, and a client turned around to us and said, well, this all sounds great. Can you actually process petabytes of data? Which it threw me probably for a few milliseconds, just as long as it takes Glasswall to reconstruct a file. But the answer is yes, because actually the beauty of what we've done is that it's infinitely scalable, and that is so powerful. So I think deployment and scalability have to be the two that I'm most proud of as a company, and credit to our engineering and product team who've just done such a phenomenal job.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the things I'm very proud of too. So let's talk about some use cases. So we talked about the core engine, which is the embedded, but we traditionally saw it a lot on appliances, but we're now seeing also on some cloud native solutions that are not ours. We have customers now who take our engine and deploy it in these big deployments. Basically taking the DLL or taking the embedded executable, and they run the whole thing themselves.
Yeah, I mean, look, well, let's start on that. I mean, you've got firewalls. Very recently, we launched an integration with Palo Alto Networks as firewalls. We have web isolation solutions. So what are we saying there? We're not trying to tell the world that we have a silver bullet. And in fact, I've never been a big believer, and I know you're not either, a believer that, there is one solution out there that can just sort of, take care of all your fears. Cybersecurity ultimately is about risk appetite. It's a risk conversation, and therefore you are throwing at it, a sort of cohesive approach of solutions that are going to be able to take care of the risk appetite that you have as an organization. So, a firewall is great. Of course it is. And web isolation solutions are fantastic. They allow users, in this case, with web isolation, to be able to surf the web securely. But that's great, but you still have vulnerabilities when it comes to downloading attachments, uploading attachments. And so, if you're investing so heavily in decreasing the risk that you have as an organization, why would you leave yourself exposed to, an element of vulnerability that is not taken care of because those systems, those processes are relying on identifying recognized digital signatures. So that's where we come in. You know, we integrate seamlessly, in this case, as I say, with a Palo Alto or with a Menlo Security, allowing users to, of course, take advantage of those solutions, but then having this extra layer of security that we seamlessly provide that essentially takes away the risk from files and attachments having vulnerabilities that are going to leave you exposed. And that's really, really powerful. And, you know, going back to the point earlier, we ingest, you know, every day files and attachments via email, but it's not just email. You know, it's as we've just said, you know, it's via networks, it's via web isolation solutions, it's shared platforms, and this is why the integration is so key. And I generally think that the CDR explosion will be on the back of these multiple seamless integrations.
Yeah. And I think the examples we're talking about, what's really nice is that it's transparent to the user. So the user is just browsing the internet, using the systems, and the files just make them safe. So another use case that we work a lot is the cross-domain. Is when, you know, basically my joke is when James Bond needs to open a file, you know, AVs are not good enough. In fact, we were talking that there's a number of movies that they will last 5 minutes if they had Glasswall, because you know, that file would have not made it through all the things inside there. So cross-domain is a big business for us, and it's something that's very important because you're making sure the files that get safely delivered to these, you know, secure enclaves.
Yeah. I mean, look, I love those movies, so I don't want to eliminate them. And I mean, I always have this sort of image of Homeland. You know, Carrie, Claire Danes' character in Homeland. You know, who's sort of walking around left, right, and center, taking dodgy files and attachments from all her various Intel contacts around the world. You know, I mean, as a person who takes this very seriously, I just keep thinking, you know, every time she's putting a USB into her laptop, you know, well, what does she do? And so I have this dream that, you know, well, Homeland's now finished, but, you know, there'll be moments where we will see all of these situations in real life, and essentially files being glasswalled, because ultimately that's what we're doing. You know, we're providing this fantastic layer of security and taking the risk away. And that risk should be taken away, by the way, because whether it's intelligence officers in the field or, you know, or doctors opening up files from their patients, these are people who are really good at what they do. They're trained doctors, they're trained intel officers, they're trained, you know, you name it. The last thing they should be thinking about is whether they should open up a file that is in front of them. And actually, those 5 seconds or 10 seconds or half a minute that they spend thinking about whether they should do that, well, that's half a minute that a patient isn't getting in airtime with a doctor. And you know, that's no joke, right? That is really, really serious. So I think it's crucial that this sort of technology is able to take away a lot of these sort of potential decisions that professionals in other fields have to take, which they shouldn't be taking in the first place. And so, you know, more and more, I think that's a very important role of what we're trying to play here. But yeah, I mean, coming back to your original point, this is around making sure that as you are receiving data from potentially untrusted sources, and, you know, ZeroTrust approaches mean that every source really should be you know, untrustworthy, then you have technology that is taking care of that.
And you mentioned the agents in the field. So on our latest product is the Glassful Desktop, which is a great product that goes into the desktop that you can open up and is able to work completely offline, and, you know, and we have some great case studies already.
Yeah, again, I mean, you know, I think I can't go into detail on some of those case studies because of their sensitive nature, but essentially, as you've just described, you know, what a wonderful way of having Glasswall's technology in your desktop. You know, it's an application in your device. It doesn't matter where you are, whether you're online or offline, you know that you have a safe way to clean a file, and not just a file, a very large number of files. And particularly that offline element is so important, because then what you can't be doing is receiving a file and thinking, well, I've got no internet connection right now, so it's 10 a.m. I'll open it up at 4 p.m. Well, that's clearly potentially devastating for an organization, a country, whatever it might be. So that is really, really important. And we have different ways of deploying it. I mean, clearly our clients are both in the public sector and in the private sector. They range from anything between defense and intelligence agencies to also other non-defense and intel public sector organizations, as well as commercial organizations in all types of industries. And I say all types of industries because ultimately This is about dealing with organizations that have a very large flow of files and attachments. It doesn't really matter whether they're a law firm, a bank, or an energy company. If they have a lot of data flowing in, flowing out, staying at rest, whatever it might be, then they need technology like this. But we're also very aware, and I'm a big believer that you, particularly to encourage adoption, you want people to be able to have a very easy way to do this, and not necessarily pay. So we actually have a freemium service. You go on our website and you can just have a play. It allows you to be able to take a file and drag and drop into our engine, and you get a clean file as a result. And I think it's a really powerful way of doing it. I mean, I encourage my family and my friends to do this, because if you do it yourself, you actually get to understand the journey a little bit, and even if you don't have a technical background, you'll be able to see what was wrong in the first place, what are some of the things that have been remediated or taken care of, and then it's just a very strong feeling of opening up a safe file at the other end. So on our website you can just go and have a play, but obviously then when it comes to our other deployments and how we do this at scale, then we have great commercial arrangements out there.
Yeah, and that's actually a really great application that we have created, all Kubernetes based. It's really cool technology in the background, but you can even deploy it internally, and if you want the company to just be able to provide that service internally, that works quite well. So the other use case that we're now getting into, which works really well, is the mass file processing. Is when customers come to us and say, hey, we got these literally terabytes and petabytes of data that we want to move from A to B. So we now build this orchestration technology that allows basically the mass processing of files, which is not trivial. Right? When you need to process lots of files with resilience and guarantees, there was a lot of engineering that we put into that.
Absolutely. And I think one of the great things there is that, again, I mean, I've never been one in a way to say, our solution is the best, ignore everything else. Actually, in many ways, there's a nice compatibility between an element of antivirus technology, sandboxing technology, which is there still for a reason and can also play a very important part, and our technology. And actually, when you put those three together, I mean, that's a very, very powerful approach to dealing with a lot of this, these mass data use cases. But what we're seeing is again, back to, for years, haven't we? We've been saying how data just keeps multiplying exponentially year on year. Organizations are having to deal with this, again, public sector and private sector. But a lot of times, and that's something that I've noticed in the last 12 months, things happen very quickly for different reasons. It might be M&A activity. We've, as you know very well, we've seen a few examples of that where an organization A buys organization B. Organization B happens to have a few petabytes of data on a particular topic issue at rest somewhere. Organization A wants to bring it over to their world. Well, how do you do that without potentially unleashing mayhem? Well, CDR is a wonderful way to be able to do that. So we essentially sanitize, cleanse that data at ridiculous scale, and then give that element of safety, integrity, and trust that organization A wanted in the first place. But that's why the scalability piece is so important, because if those sorts of use cases had come our way a year and a half ago, we would have said, well, of course, that sounds great, we'll do that for you. It's going to take around 17 years, frankly, is what we would have said. But now we can say, well, at the rate that we're processing, we can do petabytes, and those use cases, I think, will increase, from M&A activity to rationalization and integration of organizations and agencies, and so many ways, because ultimately this is about data transmission.
Yeah. So, talking about integration, so why are we so partner friendly?
I think it's in our culture. I mean, it's in a way, it's interesting because we're a small organization, and I'm very proud of that. But from day one, we've been used to working on incredibly complicated and sophisticated projects, as you know very well. Yeah. I think a lot of it driven by the defense and intelligence community, who of course are very good at this work, and put us through our paces and expected a lot from an organization of our size. But we rose to the challenge, didn't we? And I think we are the type of organization that we've enjoyed from the very start, trying to unpack and deal with extremely complicated problems and trying to present solutions as a result. So we've grown up. I mean, it's almost a Benjamin Button type sort of journey. We've grown up the other way around. Where we've from the start we've been dealing with the largest possible organizations and their biggest problems. And I think that just has ingrained this culture of delivery, working through problems. They haven't been easy, many of them, from the start, so it's required a lot of teamwork, it's required a lot of collaboration, it's required a lot of perseverance and resilience, and ultimately wanting to deliver. And I think that essentially has become part and parcel of who we are as a company, and therefore as we've scaled, I'm not going to say the scale of the challenge has decreased, but we've become way more comfortable with dealing with that sort of complexity. And I say this with humility, because ultimately it's the feedback that we get from partners and clients, but they enjoy working with us, because they know that ultimately we're obsessed with security just as they are. We're not doing this for fun, we're doing this because we care, and ultimately we want to be able to work with them to find solutions, and that counts for a lot, and I think that's what our partners see and respect us for.
So what's the next steps for somebody who wants to try our engine or give it a test drive?
Well, I mean, the website is the best way. Go to our website. There's a multitude of information there. For those with more of a techie background, you've got a lot to play with. For those with less techie background, you'll get all the key concepts and you'll give it a go. As I said earlier, you literally just go to this drag and drop solution, and you'll see it in action. And then, of course, like everything else, if you'd like to learn more about it or talk to us, then send us a note on our website. Send me an email or contact me on LinkedIn. Email is very easy, dlopez@glassfulsolutions.com, or contact me on LinkedIn. We love talking about this, and many other conversations lead to nothing, but there's always a way of being able to talk about our tech. So never be shy about getting in touch.
And we got Docker containers, we got Kubernetes deployment, we got the whole lot. So finally, what happened at Infosec?
Infosec, that was so much fun. We were there, I guess 2 or 3 weeks ago now, despite the train strikes, and it was great to see so many people there, actually, I have to say. It really was wonderful. And we knew we were, again, it's a crowded market, there's a lot of noise out there, so we knew we had to do something a bit special to stand out from the crowd. Again, credit to our brilliant marketing team. But we had a booth. It wasn't the biggest booth, but we essentially designed an escape room experience around it, which allowed those who visited us to really focus and concentrate, actually, and have a series of challenges along the way that tested their own thinking and ability to work a little bit as a team. But as they went through these challenges, there was always a direct link to understanding the journey of content disarm and reconstruction. So I like the fact that by the time they got to the end of it, people who went through the escape room experience A, had some fun, which ultimately is what this is all about, and B, came out and I think with 30 seconds would be able to explain what content disarm and reconstruction was all about, which I think is really, really powerful. So that was great, and we had lots of engagement and wonderful feedback. So really raising the bar for the next time now. But then we decided to try and do something else a little bit special. And we went down a route of a flash mob, which we've all seen over the years. But this was a lot of fun because we were at the Excel Center. There was a lot of people at lunchtime going back and forth. We're all human beings. We all want something, a little bit of an escape that's different. And this flash mob was essentially, it was trying to convey the idea of CDR. We had a few people in masks. Those were the bad actors. Those were the potential sort of malware, viruses, etc. And then we had the other group of dancers in this flash mob who were there to try and eradicate the bad actors. And of course that was the Glasswall team. So everybody was in t-shirts and the good guys beat the bad guys. All the malware is eliminated, and we have a bit of a dancing celebration. But there were loads of people there. It was just most extraordinary moment to see around 20-25 dancers all in Glasswall t-shirts of different colors, and it got noticed. I mean, I was getting messages from people who were there and didn't even know I was there. I mean, I was right there in front of the flash mob saying, "You're not going to believe what I'm seeing. I'm seeing Glasswall flash mob in front of me," and I mean, also they were asking whether this was our staff, which I thought was very funny. But it was great, and it just goes to show, doesn't it, that to be able to make some noise, you need to do something original, punch above your weight, and do your best to stand out from the crowd.
Great. Well, thanks for your time, and everybody go and check it out, try it out, and try this amazing technology, and make your files safe and the world a bit safer.
Thank you for watching.